Alrighty.
Now.
Okay.
Wait. Before we get too far, clap sync.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait.
Count
3,
us down.
2, 1, clap sync.
I clapped.
Oh, I didn't hear it. We'll assume it'll be there later.
Okay.
Alright.
Shows up.
So, should we introduce ourselves before we get
Yeah.
too far along?
Yeah, go
Alright,
ahead.
alright.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You
Okay,
start.
my
You
name's
start.
Billy.
My name is Aiden.
Okay, and then before we, we're going to talk about the Avatar movie, but before we do that, I think because this is the first episode of our podcast, we got to come up with a name
Oh, yeah, dude.
for the podcast.
Oh, I'm terrible with names. I would imagine you've been
thinking about it a little bit, but I've also wanted to save my thought process for the podcast itself.
Yeah.
So I haven't pushed myself to come up with something yet.
I have, I'll be honest, I have not thought about it very much at all. I was like, I'll let Billy have this one, dude.
I gotcha. I mean, I don't know, I liked what I was coming up with, but at the same time, I thought it was kind of dumb.
What were you coming up with?
Like impartial thoughts or something like that.
Oh, yeah. No, I like
Or
it.
incomplete thoughts or something along that line. I don't know. We can always have a working title for a little bit.
Oh, we definitely could. We could just make each episode a different title.
I
It's
kind
just
of
a
like
new
that.
name
Or,
until it sticks.
just keep changing it until we find one that we like.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. Until just
like that.
one of them sticks.
I gotcha. Well, so for this episode, our working title, you like impartial or the impartial thoughts, or
Let's do. What was the other one?
it was something thoughts. I forgot it. It was impartial thoughts or incomplete thoughts.
Let's do
We could do incoherent thoughts.
Incoherent Thoughts.
I like incoherent thoughts. I'm gonna write that down so we don't forget about it.
Oh, we can even make it Incoherent Thoughts about Avatar 2.
I like that actually,
Yeah.
because then we could do that for other episodes too. If we
Yeah.
when we go to talk about other movies and stuff, we can do incoherent thoughts about
Yes.
insert there.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think that
I like
works.
that a lot. Oh, I like that. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah,
Now that is out of the way, we can talk about
Talk
what
about the
actual
movie itself.
Yeah, about the subject that we actually wanted to speak about, which is Avatar 2: Way of the Water. That's what it's called, right?
Yes, that is what it's called. And we saw this. A few weeks back. It was was it this Saturday? It came out. It was the opening weekend.
I'm pretty sure it was the Saturday, yeah, because we were talking about maybe going and seeing it that Friday, but then I think we ended up going and seeing it that Saturday instead.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
so
was
only 2 or 3 days after it had
right.
come out.
Yeah. I tried not to hear too much about it, but it was kind of difficult because it was pretty much everywhere. Everybody was making videos about it and whatnot.
I was able to completely stay away from spoilers. I don't know if it was just because I'm sure it's harder if you're watching the videos on YouTube that talk about new movies and stuff, but for some reason I had not seen a thing about it until after I'd watched the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a little bit too invested, so I knew what a lot of people thought about the movie.
Gotcha.
And that was pretty much. I didn't know major plot details or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, I had no idea at all, and it had been a little while since I had seen the first one.
Yeah.
So I had tried to watch the first one before I went and saw the second one, but I ended up not finishing it, and I had to go back and finish it after we saw the second one.
Yeah, same thing here because it was just on TV, so I started watching it, and so I just was watching it here and there, but I never actually finished it.
Right.
But I got the base idea of what the first one was about again.
Yeah, and I mean, because I had started watching the first one before we had seen it, but I mean, I'm glad I did, but at the same time, I felt like if I hadn't, I remembered it enough that I didn't need to refresh my. I mean, there were certain details that I definitely was glad that I refreshed my memory on, but other than that, I felt I didn't need to go rewatch the first one in order to understand the second one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one is very much it does separate itself a lot from the first one. I mean, I think when it comes to the plot itself with the villain and everything, obviously that carries over from the first movie, but it's not there's so much that's new in the movie, so it's really a whole different experience. I was gonna say something about when we so when we saw it, we saw the IMAX 3D, you know, what
We went the whole deal.
yeah, like we dropped some dollars on this movie, all right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, we saw it the way it was meant to be seen, and it's how long? It's like 3 hours and 12 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a little over 3 hours. It's a bit of a trek.
Yeah. So what were your like initial thoughts on the movie?
So,
like credits roll, what was going
right.
through your mind?
So, obvious spoilers. This whole podcast episode is
yeah.
going to be a big spoiler. So, if you haven't seen the movie, then, maybe go watch it and then come back. Unless you don't care about spoilers, in which case you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
if you want to watch it, call off of work because you'll need
Yeah.
the time. You go watch it.
Yeah, go make a day out of it,
Yeah,
Schedule some time for it.
exactly.
So I mean, my initial thoughts after the movie roll, I definitely liked it. I'm not gonna hide the fact I enjoyed the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if other people enjoyed it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if I enjoyed it as much because I thought the movie itself was good, or because I am, trying to write and build my own world. And James Cameron does like a fantastic job of world building in this movie, and so I don't know if it was that made me appreciate the movie more, or if I genuinely thought that it was like a really good movie, Because I think the world building was definitely the biggest, I like that movie. Like it was the biggest factor in that,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the main things about the movie, especially that I like, is honestly, you could mute it and just look at it the entire time, and it's gonna be entertaining to a lot of people just because it looks so good. And the world building is there, so I do think that like that aspect of the movie is the best part about the whole series.
Right. Well, yeah, and then speaking of the visuals, I mean, like, this movie is probably 90-something% CGI, and not a bit of it even looks CGI. Like, there were parts, like, there's that part where he goes to ride the that one water animal. I cannot remember what they were calling it, and he goes to like wrap the leather around his hand.
Yeah.
And I thought they maybe painted somebody blue for that part, because you could even like see like the pores in his skin and stuff, But like that was all CGI. Like, that is so crazy that CGI was that good for that movie.
Yeah, it's I mean, I really didn't know what to expect in terms of the visuals of the movie.
Right.
Because I mean, CGI is everywhere now. It's literally in every movie we see. And I feel like we're kind of jaded when it comes to it sometimes because, like, did you see Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness?
I did.
And did you like that movie?
I did not.
Okay, I did not either. All right, I thought some of the visuals were garbage. I was like, this is...
Yeah, that was me. I thought his magic looked fine, but I thought, like, it was really lackluster. Like, especially if you go back and compare, like... Did you see Infinity War?
I did see Infinity War, yeah.
So, when Doctor Strange is just, like, going crazy and, like, beating up Thanos?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was insane. He was crazy cool in that part, and all the, like, magic scenes and all that were so good. And then you get to Multiverse of Madness, and he's useless. His magic doesn't work all that well. You know, like, it's like, I don't know, it was kind of a... That was a bit off topic. I didn't mean to, like, go on my rant about...
No, dude, I mean, I could honestly... we could make an entire episode about, like, hating on that movie, because that movie did, like, spoil the MCU for me a little bit. But, but when it comes to the CGI, I think we're so used to seeing it in every single movie that comes out now, and I think a large part of, like, the quality and why it might be degrading a little bit is because, like, Marvel makes 8 movies at a time now. They spread their VFX team or their CG, their digital artists everywhere, and then they also probably don't even pay them that much. So it's like everything, like, and also 90% of everything in those movies is CGI too. So it's like they make more of it and do less with it. Like it's this weird situation now. So I just feel like we've seen it so much, and so I was wondering how this movie was going to be with the CGI. I'm like, I see CGI in 90% of the movies I see every year now, and I wonder if it really is going to be all of that. And it definitely was. Like, the CGI in this movie was pretty incredible.
I would 100% agree there,
blew everything else out of the water, literally.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like a part of the reason we felt so blown away by it is because, like, back on the whole Marvel thing, you know, you go back and watch a Marvel movie back when they were in Phase 1. I mean, Marvel was producing a movie a year pretty much, you know, and their movies
Yeah.
looked great. They were fantastic. And then they shift, you know, to producing, like you said, like 8 movies a year. And so they're just like spread too thin. So the quality of the movie is just not there. And so it
Yeah.
was a breath of fresh air to have this big movie coming out that wasn't just like a, you know, thrown together mess, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it was really refreshing.
I mean, and I think it also works because, I mean, the visual side of everything is probably the number one aspect of these movies. So it definitely came through, and it was definitely appreciated. I think.
Yeah.
I do want to go back and see it. I've only seen it once, but I do want to go back and see it just because everything looked so good.
I agree. I really want to go watch it again just because, yeah, like, walking out of the theater, I felt like, man, I need to go, like, do that again. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, it's the visual side of it is an experience within itself, and
Right.
that definitely did not disappoint, and I think that's you know why the movie still did so well, is because it just looks incredible. But
I mean, yeah, that's even like, oh, sorry, you go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Like the first one, you know, its biggest thing, you know, was that it was this technological phenomenon, basically. You know, it was so visually, like, just insane. And so, you know, you go into this one and you think, you know, it's been, what, 12 years? More? 13 years?
13 years,
was that
I
how long?
think.
13 years? I guess, you know, maybe 14 now that it's 2023.
Yeah.
You know, you think like, oh, it's been that long. CGI has come such a long way. How can they make it look more impressive?
Yeah.
And like, it was insane because you go into it thinking, you know, there's no way they're gonna blow my mind with the CGI, and they do. Like, how do they do that? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big thing too was I feel like water, interestingly enough, has always been sort of a benchmark in CGI.
Right.
Like, because I remember like how the Pixar movies, how they used to animate water and how advanced it got. Like, if you go back in Finding Nemo and the way the water looks there versus the way the water looks in some of their newer movies, like that movie Luca, and like the water, like that was almost like that was a benchmark for CGI, is how realistic the water looked. And so the fact that this movie is literally like 80% water, and it looks real is insane. So that definitely, like, I realized it then. I was like, wow, I can no longer tell with water in these movies anymore. I can no longer tell. It's that advanced.
I mean, yeah, it was good enough that I could not tell what was practical and what was CGI.
Yeah,
You know, I could not tell even the slightest difference.
which is, you know, I am surprised because I love practical effects. Practical effects are, whenever a movie uses them, it's my favorite. I love it, and I can't get enough of it just because it's so rare.
It's an art in
nowadays.
itself. It's an art in itself, you know, like, you have to appreciate that aspect of it as well, you know, not you can appreciate CGI, but the practical effects is another thing that you can appreciate there.
Yeah, it's another thing entirely. So it's so rare, and so I really do crave a lot of practical effects in movies, but I mean, I can't even with this movie. It's CGI is, I mean, obviously, like, it's incredible, so I can't really complain too much about any sort of practical effects or anything, because that's what I'll complain about that with, like, Marvel movies. Oh, there's so much CGI, there's no practical effects. This movie, I don't care. CGI, whatever you want.
Well, yeah,
dude.
and it's like, when they do it well, I mean, how can you complain, right? Like, yes,
well, exactly.
This movie is a bunch of CGI, but like, it works so well for it. Like, it was like, they made this movie for CGI, basically, you know.
Right,
So
and
it's
when
like,
it works. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you can't complain about it because if they did practical effects, maybe, you know, it might not look as good, or it might look different. You know, like, this was the vision
They just start
James
painting
Cameron
people
had
blue.
for this movie, and they what?
They just start painting people blue for practical effects. Throw them in the Amazon.
They have them blue. Yeah, they have them painted blue on stilts and stuff. They've got like rubber tails hanging off of them.
That would honestly, I'd see that.
It's Avatar on a budget.
James Cameron has done it again.
You know, James Cameron, if he falls off and he has to go make Avatar on like YouTube or something.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
So other than like visual effects, what were some of the things you liked about the movie?
Yeah, so I think some of the things I liked about the movie is I really liked how they introduced the new characters and how they handled some of them. I'll get into more of that later when we talk about some of our criticisms because that does involve
Okay.
it.
I
But
agree.
as far as introducing so many new characters, I think they did a really good job because they really fleshed out. I need to look up what each person's name was
Right.
because
I remember Spider, Kitty, and I don't remember what the two boys' names were. The sons. I don't remember what either of their names were because they were
yeah
a little bit longer. And I don't remember what the youngest, like the young girl. I don't remember what her name was either.
yeah I don't
But I remember
I
like
think it was like
Jake and
Took.
ATD and stuff like that.
I think it was Took.
Took.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
does
Took
sound
for
familiar actually.
But yeah, so I thought the youngest son was very intriguing. I really liked his storyline, and it was just interesting. And also, the other girl, what's her name? You were talking about her. She's
Kitty.
yes, her. I really like those two were my favorite out of the new
Uh-huh.
cast. I think that it was really interesting because they bring in this family and they do a really good job at like establishing them already as a family. They already have these like pretty
Right.
cohesive relationships and identities, and I thought that was really cool that they didn't just kind of get lost in the background of everything, and that
Right.
a lot of the movie focused on them rather than
Yeah.
Jake or Natiri. Like it was
Yeah, because you
pretty
expect
much
this
their
movie to be another Jake and ATD story, but it totally was not.
Yeah, it was very much about the kids, and I think they did a really good job with that. I liked how they
Right.
introduced them.
Is her name Natiri or Natiri? Like I'm pronouncing it with that like
Oh
roll
yeah,
of the
I'm
R,
honestly,
but I don't
I'm not exactly sure.
because I know it's spelled Neytiri or something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
sure if people watch this, I'm sure we'll get some kind of comment about it, right?
We'll get corrected.
Like grammar police, that's their big thing, right?
The Avatar 2 Grammar Police.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the things I did like about it was the characters. I think they did a good job with the Sully family.
Well, because I mean, you think like the first one had none of these other family members in it, and so the second one now does, and so you think with the introduction of like how many is it, like 5 like big cast characters. I mean, like obviously they introduced more there, but I mean like they introduced pretty much 5 main characters, right? Yeah, because there's 2 sons, 2 daughters. Okay, maybe it was only 4.
No, then Spider.
Oh, Spider, right. Okay, yeah, so 5 new cast members, and I didn't feel like any of them were left unfleshed out intentionally. Like, I definitely think Kitty was unexplored, but I think that was on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely think their plan is to explore her story in the later movies.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I am really excited to see where her storyline goes, and I think they did a good job at setting it up. It wasn't really resolved, but if they're really going to be setting up this entire universe, then that's something to look forward to in the future. But yeah, I really liked her, and I think his name's Loak. I think that's the younger son's name, but I really like those 2 characters, and even the older son too. I liked him as well. I think they all fit together very well. I mean, yeah.
Well, I think they did a really good job making them seem like a family, which is something that like I feel like movies often struggle with. Is that like you get these people that are supposed to be playing a family and they don't interact like a family does. But I felt like they did that really well.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, it. I don't know what I was gonna say.
Lost your train of thought.
Yeah, dude, that's why it's incoherent. It's incoherent, everybody.
Yeah, incoherent thoughts. We didn't lose the train of thought. It was never
It
coherent.
was just
to begin with.
yeah, it was never there. But yeah, they do a really good job at introducing these characters and making you actually care about them. Because there's so many movies out there that they introduce so many characters, but you're like, I don't care. I don't know.
That that was actually something I was gonna mention too. Is you think these new, like when the movie starts and you see that they've introduced these characters, you think I'm not really gonna care, but then by the end of the movie you're rooting for them, which is a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful thing that not a lot of movies, for some reason movies are missing out on that. Like that you just don't care about what happens, you know?
Exactly. That was actually, dude, we'll have to make a whole episode about our like view on Marvel right now, because that's
I
one
was
thing.
actually, yeah, I super agree with that. Yeah.
Because we keep saying things and I'm like, dude, I could talk about this with Marvel, because there's some
Right.
movies I'm like, bro, I do not care what happens to any of these
Okay,
characters.
then
Like,
a non-Marvel example then of movies having these characters that you just do not care about is did you watch Godzilla, or is it Godzilla versus
oh,
Kong or Kong versus Godzilla?
I don't know. Doesn't even matter, dude.
Yeah,
I don't
that
care
one-
either way.
Yeah, that one was bad because I mean, like, you like Godzilla, you like King Kong, they're both awesome, and then
Yeah.
for some reason
There's just these
Millie Bobby
human
Brown is
characters.
there, and whatever, I don't remember what the other. There's like three characters. There's three human characters basically
Yeah.
that they have, and you just do not care about them at all.
Yeah,
Like
the
they
thing
were
about
just so
yeah,
pointless.
they just throw them in because you have to have the human element in some of these movies. But I'm like, dude,
Right.
I don't really need that.
Yeah, like that was what I'd heard, that like, one of the biggest complaints about that movie was there's not enough like human issues and stuff. But I mean, like, it's a big monster movie. Like,
Yeah,
I
dude,
want to
I
see
do
these
not
monsters
care.
fight.
Take take a camera, strap it to a gorilla, and have him go fight an alligator. I will watch that for 5
Yeah, exactly.
hours. Dude.
It's like watching Dragon Ball and then walking out of there like, man, this story wasn't all there. Like, so it was about big, powerful fight scenes.
Which is yeah, exactly. And I think the one before that, Godzilla King of Monsters or whatever, I thought that one was a lot worse than Kong
Really?
versus Zilla. Yeah, I really
actually
did not like that one.
I actually preferred I didn't like King of Monsters all that much, but I definitely disliked King Kong versus Godzilla more. Or is
We'll
it?
have to-
I don't- Is it Godzilla versus Kong, or is it Kong versus Godzilla? That one. I don't know. I didn't care for that one. I felt bored through the entire thing. Like, even the monster scenes, like, didn't seem all that impactful to me.
I think we'll have to dig into this a little bit deeper. But I think that makes a good point. You were saying how the main thing about those movies is not the human stuff or what's going on
Yeah.
like that. It's about the monsters. That actually
Right.
definitely does tie into Avatar 2, because the main aspect of this movie is the visuals. And
Right.
people were saying, even before it came out, they're like, it looks crazy, it looks amazing, but is the story going to be there? Like,
Right.
and it became this weird thing because I saw people saying it, and then I saw more people saying it, and more people saying it. So it became this like sort of like herd mentality, where it was like, it looks good, but where's the story? It's like, all right, I
Right.
know this isn't everybody's original idea, but
Yeah. To be fair, we do live in a time period now. So, like, reverse 10 years. If you had a movie this budget, guaranteed it was going to be this crazy blockbuster, it was going to be so good. But nowadays, you get these movies that, like, are hyped up like crazy, and it's like a 50-50 shot if it's going to be a good movie or not. Like, for some reason, in the past, like, I want to say, like, 5 years, movies have just, like, not hit as much as they used to.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Like, I think that doesn't even just apply to movies. Like, everything. Like, I mean, when was the last time, like, Elden Ring, God of War last year were like awesome hype games, and then every other hype game last year was like lackluster. It did not meet expectations.
Exactly.
And I think the biggest example of that is the poor Sonic community. They have such low expectations that, like, even a almost put together game is like groundbreaking for
amazing.
them. Yeah, because I mean, like, have you seen anything about Sonic Frontiers?
No, I haven't. I
It-
have not.
Everybody is saying it's so good. It's such a great Sonic game. I can't believe they did so good. I went and watched a let's play of it. It doesn't look finished. It looks like have you ever seen somebody release their like Unreal Engine, here's what my like game dev, behind the scenes look is.
Yeah.
Like, that's almost what it looks like. It doesn't look finished, but
man.
because Sonic is such a beat down
The
community,
bar's so low.
the bar is as low as it could possibly be. So even though this looks like a bad game, to the Sonic community, it could not have been better.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a very similar thing, not with Avatar, because I definitely think Avatar is a great movie. I don't think it was bad, and because we were conditioned towards bad movies, we thought it was good. But like, I think that was why people's expectations were, it looks good, but is it really going to be good? It's because we're set up now to be to expect a bad film, basically.
Right. Well, and I think there was almost two bars for this movie. The visual bar, which was very, very high. Everybody knew that.
Right.
But then maybe the story bar was much, much lower because of the first movie. I know a lot of people didn't truly resonate with the first movie story. It's very simple. It's not anything that's super complex. But that goes back to what I was saying with how people were like, well, it looks good, but is the story going to be good? Because I feel like for a lot of people, that wasn't even something that they were asking. Like, they weren't really concerned with that until other people started saying that. And it just became this thing. So after watching the movie, people were like, well, it looked good, but the story wasn't good. So it's like people just keep repeating things. And I do think there's a point to be made where you separate the visuals from the story and you talk about them independently. But I think I don't know. I feel like that point was just it was just overdone. Like, we get it.
No, I agree. Yeah, like, okay, we know what we're going in to expect. No need to keep beating the dead horse, right?
Right, exactly. I was like, okay, I've heard the same thing over and over and over. As if people are like copying, pasting each other's ideas. I was like, okay, we get it. All right, let's talk about what's good about it.
Right.
But there is something to be said about the parts that don't quite work and the story itself.
Because I'm assuming that was your segue towards our criticisms.
Yes.
Before we criticize the movie, because some of the story stuff was part of my criticism about it too. I definitely had my criticisms about the story, but before we get into that, I did want to talk about something else I did really like about the movie, and that was the like world building that went on, like the culture of I can't remember what they're called, but the water tribe, basically.
Yes.
Of like, that was incredible. And like, I know James Cameron took inspiration from like real life, Native American tribes and stuff like that, but it was just so amazing to like see the like culture that they had, like the religion with Awa. The just like the things that they would do, like the ICU thing where they put their hand to their forehead. Bring it down, like the fact that was like their greeting and stuff like that. I felt like there was just so many little details that made it feel like a living world and not just this like secluded bubble.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the most important things with world building is you have to make the world actually feel lived in.
Right.
And I think they did a really good job at that because in the first movie, we don't see these other tribes, right? It's all just the people who live in the forest, right? So this was really cool seeing just how different their cultures were, how they clashed, and also how they all looked different. They all had different ways of transportation and what they believed, and I just thought that was super cool because they had their similarities, but there was these very stark differences, and I think that they handled those very well, and I think it really did flesh out the world quite a bit.
I agree. I really agree with that. Because, in the first movie, what are the people called? I can't remember what they're called.
I'm not exactly sure.
Hang on, I'm going to look that up real quick because it's going to bother me the whole episode if I don't know. What are the blue people in Avatar called? They are called...
the Na'vi. And then
the Na'vi.
Well, no, the Na'vi is our dudes, I think. Or is that... No, just... Na'vi
no, I think
tribe.
the Na'vi is just I think the Na'vi are the, like, race, and then they have different tribes.
Oh, yeah, okay, so this one was Metkaina, yeah.
That was the water one?
Yes, Metkaina.
Okay. Yeah, because in the first movie, you see the Na'vi, and I don't want to say it feels secluded, because it really doesn't. The world feels alive. But you only see this one aspect, and for this movie to explore the other, like, because this, the everything, like, the atmosphere about this movie is completely flipped, like, you go from forest to water living, like, it cannot be more different,
Right.
And so, like, to see the differences, and for it to not be like, oh, we're just gonna recycle all the things that the forest Na'vi do, like no, they changed a lot, and I felt like that was incredible.
Yeah, they definitely gave them their own identity, and I thought that was really cool. And it did make me wonder. It was like, well, I want to see what these other tribes are like, if there are others. If there are people who live out in the mountains. Like there's just so much more to Pandora, and I think that's what this movie showed.
Yeah, I almost feel like it worked better as a first movie. Not I don't know how to explain it, but like this movie made me excited for the upcoming movies.
Yes.
And I feel like that's something a first movie should do. Like the first movie, definitely, I enjoyed it. I definitely thought it was a good movie. But when I had seen it before, I wasn't like, man, I hope they make a second one of this.
Yeah.
But when I saw this one, I was like, wow, I cannot wait for the next one. I wanted more.
That's a good point, because that's how I felt watching the first. I mean, when I first watched the first movie, I was like 5 years old. But even watching it after that, seeing. I think there was always some excitement for the second movie, but this one really does set up the sequel, and it's like, like things are about to go down in this next movie. And
because the first one, sequel wise, it sets it up like, there could be a sequel, but if we don't make a sequel, it's fine. But this one, you could there were definitely things that they purposely did not explore because they were setting it up for the next films.
Right. Yeah,
this one did a really good job for setting up for a sequel.
Yeah, I agree, because I think this one was it was almost like it was Pandora's first movie in terms of like the story and the way things were going to go, and
right.
the actual first movie was about more so the exposition of the characters that we were going to see.
Right.
So I thought this one definitely did. It expanded, and it pushed the story in a direction, which I think is obviously super important.
Right. All right. I think we've done enough praising of the movie. If you're ready to talk
now
about
it's time to talk about what we hate.
What our criticisms are.
Everything.
What we've been keeping.
I was lying. I
bottled up
hate this
inside of
movie.
us. Yeah. Now that we're done saying how good it is, now we can tell you not to go watch it.
Yeah. After we've told you to go watch it, don't go.
We were only sponsored for the first 30 minutes of this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Now we can actually tell you what we feel.
Yeah, sponsor break. This was sponsored by Avatar 1. Go watch that one. Not the second.
James Cameron is breathing down our necks right now.
So criticisms. They're there. They exist. They should be said. Why don't you go ahead and start? I feel like I might be a little bit more harsh than you.
I would agree, because my criticisms are small criticisms. Like, they definitely didn't make me dislike the movie in any way.
No,
I definitely thought they were like, they probably should have changed that. But it wasn't like, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think my biggest criticism, honestly, it was kind of the story. Like, as much as we just got done praising the story, like, I definitely thought the story was good, but it felt like recycled from the first film. It felt very similar to the first film.
Yeah.
It was, because, the first film was Jake learning how to be a part of the Na'vi and learning their customs and ways and stuff like that. And this movie was exactly that. It was Jake and his family learning the ways of the new tribe that they're living in.
Right.
And then even like they recycled the villain. They pretty much recycled the villain's main, well, not the villain, but one of the villain's main drives, because in the first movie they're trying to get unobtainium, but in this movie they're trying to kill those whales and harvest their brain fluid or whatever. Like they just basically... They even did the whole like, this stuff is funding our trips here. This is this super valuable thing that we can only find here. This is the whole reason we're here. They copy pasted that, it felt.
Right.
I didn't think that was like all that bad, because what works. But I definitely felt like they, I don't know if there was a different way to go about it, because they definitely wanted to explore this water tribe's lives and stuff like that, and I felt like it would be very hard to do that without doing the whole, it's these people learning their ways, Yeah. And so I definitely felt like they were in a corner with that one, but I would have liked to see them try something else.
Yeah, I think so too. But that is one of the reasons that I am excited for the next one, because I do think that there's a lot that they can do with the story.
Right.
And I'm excited to see what ends up happening.
Right.
But I think for me, obviously my biggest criticisms do come from the story, but pretty specific things. I think one thing in particular, honestly, I'll come out and say it. Probably my least part of the movie. My least favorite part of the movie was Spider.
Oh,
I don't know.
I was about to say mine was my least favorite part was Spider too. I felt like he was kind of pointless a little bit.
He was like, I was. Whenever you watch a movie like this, the story can be whatever it wants to be, right? It can be bad even, but the moment that it takes you out of the movie, that's when I have a problem.
Right.
And I feel like every time Spider was on screen, it took me out of the movie because he just doesn't. It's not the fact that he's even like the human there. It's just because his character wasn't written in a way that made much sense.
That was a pretty big thing that I noticed too. The only part I felt like he took me out of the movie, like I didn't have as much of an adverse like, oh, every time he was on screen I was taken out of the movie, but I did feel like he took me out of the movie this at one specific part, and that was when they introduced him. They were like, oh yeah, the people who stayed on Pandora, integrated themselves into the Na'vi, and the Na'vi and these people are, like helping each other out now. Oh, and by the way, for some reason there's a kid here.
Right.
And I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
That was just so, like, off-putting. Like, it was just so weird to me,
It was really weird because it was like, you could tell, like, they didn't know what the hell to do with them after the first act of the movie because he gets captured by his dad, and he's like, the entire time, obviously he cares about the people there and the planet. And so he's like, he's angry, he's pissed off, he's like, no. But then, how do you keep that for the next 2.5 hours of the movie?
Yeah, because you basically just have to rinse repeat every time he's on screen,
Right. So he's on
that's
screen.
Basically what they did. Every time he was on screen, it was them harming the Na'vi society and him being upset about it.
Exactly. And even there were certain times where he's like kind of like just chill, and he's like trying to crack jokes, and it was like the tone does not fit. Like this, it just doesn't work.
Noticed that as well. Yeah, it like seemed weird because he's a prisoner, and in some scenes, he hated being a prisoner. He he doesn't like his dad. I can't remember what his dad's name is, but he doesn't like being his prisoner. And then just next scene he's joking with him, he's messing around with him, they're chill. It's like it was very flip-floppy, I felt.
Right. And that really sucked because I thought it's intriguing having this character, and maybe it kind of comes out of nowhere that he's the son of the general.
Right. But I felt like they could have. I felt like they should have done something else other than make him the son of the general. Because in the first movie, you see no mention of like
there's
the son, the general having a relationship with anybody, him having a kid at all. But then for some reason, the second one, you're supposed to believe he had a kid.
Yeah. So I think the Spider was a little bit of wasted potential in this movie specifically. He really doesn't do much. He kind of just pisses you off at certain points.
Right.
And each one of his scenes are conflicting in tone with the rest of the movie. And I just had no idea where his character was going. And so he doesn't, at the end, he saves his dad, which was like, okay, cool, nice.
That was a big criticism of mine, too, because I feel like they only did that so they could recycle him as the villain again.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm hoping.
I am 100% sure that their plan is to give him some kind of redemption. Like, by the end film, I'm sure he'll be a good guy. I am almost positive about that.
Same,
but it just kind of sucked though. I thought that they because he died in the first one, they bring him back. He's supposed to have thought to be dead in the second one, and they bring him back again.
Right. Yeah. So I think that that was a whole thing, and I think as a whole, I there's a lot that I would change with Spider and their relationship specifically. Honestly, I think Spider would have been better if he was just younger, like if he wasn't as influential maybe over the story, and we got to see him grow up a little bit more instead of just kind of having him there and having him on the opposite side of the family. I think it would have been nice to see him younger. I don't know how you would have done that and still made him like the general's son and whatnot, but
right. Well, yeah, I agree. I would agree with that sentiment because you have to think you're supposed to believe that this kid has spent. I mean, how old is Spider supposed to be? Like 16, 17?
Yeah, something like that.
He's a late teenager, obviously, and so he has spent almost 2 decades of his life with the Na'vi, but then he spends like a couple of days with this dude who has the memories of his dad. Because, they make it clear that, oh, I'm not your dad, I just have his memories kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to believe that over the course of those couple of days that this person that Spider has never met before, he just knows that he was related to this guy at some point,
Yeah.
Other than that, he has zero connection. But for some reason, he has a change of heart that quickly.
It wasn't believable in a very good way, and
right.
I really was kind of disappointed with how they did his character, and some of the I do have to say, like, some of the dialogue in this movie was a little bit weird.
I literally, because I have myself a little sheet of paper where I wrote down some talking points. I wrote under dislikes, cringy dialogue.
Oh, I was just about to say, I was like, some of the dialogue is kind of cringe, dude. Some of it's kind of cringe.
I thought specifically, I know they were trying to be funny here, but specifically when the youngest daughter got captured again, and she was like, "Why am I always tied up?" I was like, "Oh, that was not cool."
Yeah, I think the biggest parts was whenever the teenagers interacted with each other. Mm-hmm. It was like they were like, bro, what's up, bro? And it was just like, this sounds like a 70-year-old dude's like interpretation of how teenagers talk.
It was like middle-aged people try to write teenagers, basically,
Right, which, like, he's not wrong. We say bro a lot, but it was just like,
but it was
like, we get it, dude.
I see where you're going with it. Yes, specifically the cringy part of the, like, sons that stood out to me was whenever they were picking fights, and he was like, "Yeah, you see this pinky? Well, if I turn it," and then he punches the dude, and he's like, "Yeah, that's called a punch." I thought that was the cringiest part of the movie. I was like, bro, that was dumb. I
didn't mind that part too much. I thought it was funny. But
I had a little bit of an ick at that part. I was like, ooh.
But I think at that point I was like, okay, the dialogue is just gonna be like this, whatever.
Yeah, which is weird because I only saw it with the kids, and because it's like Jake interacting with the tribal leader of the war tribe. I thought that part was really good. I thought it was kind of interesting to see the tribal leader, the guy, be so welcoming of him, and then the lady, she was a little bit more like, oh, we don't know these people and stuff like that. I thought that was interesting. But the kids just, I think they dropped the ball a little bit there.
Yeah, I think so too. I also, I like to piggyback off what you were just saying. I think it was cool how they were like, oh yeah, this is the big dude, he's the leader of the tribe, but it's like, nah, it's his wife, really. Like, she's the one. If she doesn't have approval,
he's the tribal leader, but she's the tribal leader.
Right. But yeah, the dialogue in certain parts were Spider really was not my favorite character. He took me out of the movie sometimes. I didn't really know what they were doing with him. And then I will say motive in this movie was a little strange.
I agree.
With Jake. I mean, he's like, oh, we gotta run. Let's go to the water, guys. So they go to the water, and then he's like, they won't find us here. And then they find him there. It was just like, what are you doing? Like, but also, what didn't make sense to me was if he left because he feared they would find him, right?
Right.
So, if he leaves, will they not still probably find? Because they capture Spider, and he's like, oh shoot, we gotta leave. Spider's gonna give us up. So you were just kind of chill with leaving the rest of the tribe behind?
Well, because what makes you think that even if you've left the tribe, they're not still going to go and interrogate your tribe?
Exactly. Like, I didn't really get that. I was like, aren't they still just going to go to the forest and mess up everybody else?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I thought the same thing, that, like, running seemed like an odd option for them.
Yeah, it really didn't make much sense. And I really wish, like, I really wish they kind of fleshed that out more. And because it was just kind of weird. It was just like, yeah, he's the leader. And then he's like, there's like an inauguration for somebody else. He's like, I'm stepping down. Peace out, everybody. I'm taking my family. Good luck.
Right.
And it's just supposed to, that happens in a matter of like 10 minutes.
And then especially if you go rewatch the first one, Jake is very motivated. He's like, these people are coming to destroy our home. We have to stand our ground and fight against them. And maybe it's because he has a family now, but he's driven more by fear in this movie. He fights in the beginning, but then he decides, you know what, we have to run. We have to get out of here.
Yeah, I just wish there was not such, like, logical flaws in what he was doing.
Right.
But
Well, and
he's
then
got a
I thought
family.
the
I'll
biggest
accept
flaw in, well, not the biggest, but one of the big flaws in his whole, like, oh, we gotta run so they don't find us, is, okay, he ran so that they wouldn't find him, and then they were very close to finding him again, so why wouldn't he then run again? Like, he was like, okay, I guess we'll stand our ground here then.
it. Right. It's like, yeah. he
You know,
just
instead
like
he got a
shows
bunch
up.
of the water tribe people killed because he was like, you know what, we're not gonna leave y'all. Okay, we'll stay.
It's like some guy shows up at your house. He's like, "Yo, I need to lay low for a while," and then
Yeah.
whoever he's running from shows up, and he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna stay here and fight." And it's like, "Nah,
Yeah.
bro, go back home and fight. I don't have any part of
leave
this.
again. Take the people who are chasing you somewhere else.
Go back home and just you do your thing there." I thought that was
Right.
kind of funny. He's like, "We're not gonna leave," and it's like, "This
Yeah.
isn't your place, dog. Like, this is you don't like I don't know." But I do think it was cool how like at the end he's like, "All right, badass, we're gonna go. This is
Yeah.
it."
No, I definitely thought the movie was at its strongest. Well, I don't know if I'd say strongest. I would say is, in terms of excitement, it was most exciting near the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, the end of the movie was like nonstop.
Like that last hour was
Adrenaline rush.
pretty crazy.
Yeah. I do think another thing is I wish Neytiri had a bigger role in this movie. She was
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
very important in the first movie.
They
and in this
definitely
one,
they tried
kinda
to
sideline her.
give her that like big role near the end of it, but yeah, like she was super absent for most of the movie, and then she just like out of nowhere, she's here, she's impactful.
Right,
You know?
and I thought the dynamic between her and Jake was kind of silly at some points because he's like, "Yo, we need to do this," and she's like, "No, you're being stupid. We don't need to do that." And he's like, "Hey, no, you're being stupid. Let's do this." And so they
Yeah.
go and do it. It's just like he wants to do something, she disagrees, and he's like, "No, I disagree more." And then they go and do whatever it is. It was just like it was kind of like that for a few times throughout the movie. I just wish that she was in the movie more, like she had more of an influence over things.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit odd that, because she was, there were, Jake and her were both main characters in the first movie. And for some
Yeah.
reason, when you get to this movie, you see all the kids integrate themselves into this new society. You see Jake integrate himself into this new society, but you do not see her integrate herself into the society at all.
No, not really at all. Yeah, but I mean, she's still really cool though. Her scenes, every scene that she had, especially her fight scenes, were crazy.
Yeah, her fight scenes were incredible.
I would
and
be
honestly,
afraid of
now
her
that I'm
more than
thinking about
anybody
it,
else.
actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if omitting her from the movie was intentional, but I think not having her integrate herself into the new society was intentional, because if you think about it, it was kind of metaphorical in the last battle when everybody, including Jake, are riding the like water things, and she's still using the flying one that she had from the
true.
force.
Yeah.
So I think that was supposed to be her, like, her personality, even though they're seeking shelter with these people, she's not going to change her ways for them, kind of thing.
Right, which makes sense because she was obviously with her tribe the longest out of anybody in this movie. So
I wish they would have, instead of just not showing her integrate herself, they should have shown her not wanting to integrate. They should have showed, like, they showed Jake learning how to ride that one creature. They should have had her like do something similar, where they're like teaching her something and she's like, "No, I'm not doing this," or whatever.
yeah,
I felt like that was a bit unexplored.
and I guess we can also talk about the villains in this movie, or the villain.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
I'm trying to look up his name right now.
Yeah, it was General something.
General
While you're looking that
Ardner?
up, though, I'm going to run this by you. I definitely think I don't know. They might. I think what they should do is, you see the dude who was hunting the whales, the guy who, like, lost his arm?
Uh-huh.
He's definitely still alive, I think. He's going to be another recycled villain in the next
Oh yeah,
movie.
no, I think
He's
so
100%
too, because
coming back.
the way they showed his arm being ripped off, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, he's definitely
back.
going to be seeking some kind of revenge for that.
Yeah.
Well, and then they like intentionally made it be a wound that he could survive from. It chopped his arm off. It didn't like chop his head off or cut him in half or anything like that. It was a non-fatal wound that was just enough to make him mad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we probably will be seeing him. His name is, by the way, the general's name, or Colonel. It's
Uh-huh.
Colonel Miles Quaritch. I'll just call
Okay.
him Colonel Miles.
I remember them saying something Miles, because I remember when he goes to ask Spider what his name is, Spider says something Miles or something like that.
Yeah.
Or he says his name, and then the Colonel says Miles, and then he says, yeah, but nobody calls me that anymore, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder
Honestly,
why he's called Spider. Like, what an
oh
odd
yeah, I don't know.
nickname. Because I was wondering if they were gonna like explain that in the movie, but I don't think they did. I think they just kind of like, oh yeah, his name's
Yeah, his
Spider,
name's
by the way.
Spider. Do they even have
Yeah.
spiders on Pandora?
I was wondering the same thing. Like maybe Jake named him, and Neytiri and all them are just like, I don't get it, but okay. I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I have no idea. But
If you want to, we can talk about because that last half of the movie, I think there's definitely a lot to dissect there.
yeah, there is. Yeah, and I think
Or not half, I guess last third of the movie, since it was like the last hour.
what were your thoughts on the character of Colonel Myers or Miles?
I'm conflicted because I thought in this movie he did good. I thought it was interesting to see this guy who's like, oh, I don't care if we kill the Na'vi or whatever like that. But at the same time, he was like, we got to learn their ways. We have to understand them. He was like, he wasn't just the like typical, I don't care about the Na'vi. I'm just going to kill them just because. He was like, he was going to learn them basically. I mean, yes, he was learning them so he could kill them. But it was like, I don't know, his motivation was a bit better. I felt,
Yeah.
But when you stack him up against the first movie, I don't know. I just don't care for it how they like recycled him. I'm not a big like recycled villain fan all that much.
Yeah.
So I just didn't care for that.
I am also conflicted because I think it's cool to have him as a villain. Like I think him becoming one of the Na'vi is really really cool. Like it looks more threatening and menacing. However, I just don't like the idea of villain is bad because villain bad, right? Like I want him to have, like there has to be something about him that is somewhat human or emotional or something there that you can see where he's coming from. I mean, the best villains have some sort of motivation that's like, okay, that makes sense. They make you think a little bit. He doesn't do that. He's just like, I hate Jake, I'm gonna go kill him. And it was like, that felt a little wasted. But at the same time, that's why they brought in Spider, because that's supposed to be his thing that brings him to...
But he's motivated to hate Jake before he even knows about Spider. Like, Spider is definitely his motivation near the end of the movie, and it's his, like, human thing, but before that, I mean, he's just this dude who hates Jake,
Yeah, and I wish that they showed more of that side of him, the side where he's the more vulnerable side of him that actually kind of shows where his mind is at. I think there was a clip or a deleted scene from the first movie that kind of shows into his mindset a little bit, that kind of fleshes out his character more. I'll have to go back and like show that. But yeah, in this one, I really wish that they had done more with him in terms of his motivation. He's not like the best movies have intriguing villains. Like you need an intriguing villain. That's what keeps you going. And I think that if for me writing the third movie, I have some ideas on where to take him. But I think I really hope that he ends up becoming a really well-rounded villain.
Right.
I hope it's not just the same thing. And I kind of feel the same way about a lot of the like bad guys in this movie. It's just like nobody has any morals whatsoever. Like no one's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't just kill these guys.
Right. I thought the same thing about the first movie too. I think the first movie suffered from that a lot because it's very obvious that the Na'vi are sentient and they feel and they have these societies, and for some reason these people just don't care. They're just like, we'll kill them if we have to. It doesn't matter. But I don't know if real humans would not react. I know the whole thing is like, oh, humans bad sentiment, but I think realistically, if humans were to travel to another society, there's no way they would react like that. They would be like, "Oh, this society doesn't matter to us at all." I just don't think that's realistic.
It was interesting. Like I get like they're trying to make like a point. With like that happening in real world societies, it just doesn't like in terms of like the movie. It's like that was the first movie's point, right? In this
Yeah,
one,
it was very much supposed to be a like call to, like back when the people what colonized America, they forced the Native Americans to conform to their society. I think it was definitely supposed to be like a call to that.
yeah, I think there's a lot of different parallels that they were calling towards, and I think like yeah, it works, but there wasn't anything. There wasn't like it kind of they're keeping that going instead of actually expanding upon it a little bit.
Right.
And I wish that they did that because there's also more that they could draw parallels to. There's more that they could do
Right.
with the humans instead of just being like. Because I feel like also this one was like about more so like animal cruelty and whatnot, and it was just like okay, like they're
Right.
we get it. The humans are doing bad things.
Yeah.
They're doing bad things to the people, and they're doing bad things to the animals. But is there
Yeah.
anybody in this story that's like, hey, because obviously things change, like.
Right.
So is there anybody in this story that's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be so mean to everybody?
Which I mean, I think her name is Grace, the scientist from the first film who is the mother of Kitty.
Yeah.
I think she was that voice in the first movie. She's part of the human. She's a human. And she has human motivations, but she's also like, hey, these are real people that we have to care about too.
Right. And I think that obviously the Colonel is the face of what the humans believe and what they're trying to do. They don't care. They don't care at all. And so, him changing is supposed to be representative of that. I just wish that they had showed a little bit more about
Right.
like where does his, because I think you can have ignorant characters, but you have to show where their ignorance comes from. And I think that's what's important. And then they don't really show that for him. It's just kind of there. So
Right.
I'm still looking forward to the next movie.
Oh, I am too. Absolutely. I felt like this one, in terms of the it's calling to something. It's a real life situation that they turned into this movie. I felt like the first one, it was very obvious what was going, like what they were calling to. But I felt like the second one was a little bit more separated from real life.
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't have it as close, and the message behind it wasn't as impactful as the first one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the message is like it's very much just like I don't know. It's not very like complicated or anything. It's just kind of there, and so like I wish that they really incorporated that message in with some actual really good character work. I think that's when you get like the most powerful sort of movies and metaphors is when you mix those two really well. And this one they don't do it as so well right now.
Right.
Maybe they will.
agree.
I think the first movie did a better job at it, honestly. Like
it's possible because when they were filming the first movie that they spent more time doing these things because they didn't for sure know if it was going to have sequels. Maybe they were probably building that movie out to be a standalone film. But this one is they're definitely planning on making more of this, so it's very possible that they didn't bother fleshing out all this stuff as much because they're like, we have time to explore that later.
Right.
Which
I hope they do.
At the moment, it just kind of sucks that we didn't get to explore that.
Yeah. So to I think wrap it up, I think maybe we could talk about what you hope to see in the next movie. Where do you want to see characters end up? How do you want to see them evolve? What story do you want to see?
Okay. So I definitely want to know what is going on with Kitty. I want to know what her story is because I mean right now she's Pandora Jesus. She was born with no father. She was just like created basically, and she has this weird connection to Awa, which is something else I was going to talk about too. In the first movie, they make Awa out as this deity, but I am wondering if maybe Pandora, the like actual planet, is alive. And so instead of Awa being an actual deity, it's like the planet reacting.
That is
and
true.
because it's a planet reacting, it seems like a god to them. But I wonder if it really is or if it's like the planet,
That would be pretty cool. I wonder if that's the direction.
Yeah, so I would like to see Awa explored. I would like them to talk about that a bit more because right now it's very spiritual. Awa is this like separate, I don't know how to explain it. Not separate because they are very integrated with Pandora itself and stuff like that. But we don't understand Awa yet, and I would like to by by the end of the Avatar series, I would like to understand Awa, and I would like to understand Kitty, because I definitely think Kitty is the route that they're taking to understand Awa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like for them to flesh out Spider's character a lot more. I want them, because I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely feel like they might take that, because I think most people probably, I think Spider was their least favorite part of the movie for most. And so I feel like I would hope that they would take that when they make this. Well, actually, I don't know, because they filmed the third and fourth movie alongside this one, so maybe they can't. But I was gonna say, hopefully they would take these what people are the criticisms to heart and change that and flesh Spider out. I mean, maybe they already were like, oh yeah, we're gonna flesh Spider out later.
Right. Yeah. I am curious how that's all gonna work. Yeah. I think.
I feel like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No.
off.
No. No. Go ahead.
I feel like something that they're going to explore in this next movie is the brother's guilt for getting his other one killed.
Yeah.
Because in this one, the brother gets killed, and the other one is like trying to tell his dad like, "Oh, it's my fault," and the dad's like, "No, I see you. This is not your fault. We have to fight this," But so they didn't get to explore the like brother's guilt. I definitely think they're gonna do that in this next movie. They're gonna have him, because in this one he was very like, oh, I know Dad said not to go and fight the humans and stuff like that, but we should anyways. So I feel like in the second one, he might be a bit more cautious, because he's like, yeah, old me would have done this, but old me got my brother killed, so I can't.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that at all.
Yeah, I think that's something that they'll explore is, yeah. And, I mean, obviously, I think they'll explore the family's grief a bit more in total. Like, maybe, because, the father, or Jake, I don't know why I'm saying the father, like, I don't know his name, Jake. They pass it off like, oh, Jake is not upset at him. He understands what happened and stuff like that. And I'm sure Jake does. I'm sure Jake's not, like, angry at his son or anything like that, and I'm sure he understands what happened. But at the same time, when all this was going down, they were in the middle of a battle, so I don't know if, Jake didn't get the time to, like the family. Not just Jake. The family didn't get the time to react to the brother's death all that much. I'm sure they might explore one of the family members blaming the younger brother for the older brother's death. And I'm sure that's where they're going with that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're probably going to show more of the mourning side of everything in the next movie. I mean, at least hopefully, if they are going to make a better story, I think that is something that would be a part of it.
Right. I am curious, because this movie was exploring the new tribe and their ways, in the water and stuff like that, and the chief, I don't know what they actually call him, is says like, oh, your son is with our ancestors, so you are our family now too.
Yes.
And so I'm really curious, because in this movie, it was them running away from the forest tribe and seeking shelter with the water tribe. So I wonder how they're going to introduce the new tribes.
Yeah, I don't know. I am curious about that. That was honestly that is one thing that I'm really looking forward to, is seeing more of just the world in general. And I think most of the things that I was really looking forward to seeing in the next movie is what they do with the Colonel himself. I in my mind I was like, okay, how would I make this movie? What would I do with him? And I think personally, I would like to see him on his own in Pandora. No connection to the humans. He's on his own. He has to survive all of a sudden in this alien world that, all of a sudden he has to do almost what Jake did, where he had to integrate himself into their society. And so I would like to see him on his own, struggling, trying to... I don't know what his motive would be yet, but that is something. I want to see him isolated.
Right. That was something I was kind of talking about earlier, where, I definitely think the thing that they're going to do with him is he's going to have a change of heart at some point. He's going to be a good guy at some point. I would be surprised if that was not where they're going with his character.
Yeah. And
I think part of the reason they might do that, because I wasn't thinking about this before, but you just opened my eyes to it, is, they might totally explore the whole, he has to integrate himself into their society, and maybe he falls in love with their society. He realizes that these are, feeling people, and he learns to like appreciate them, and so that's
Yeah.
when he has this change of heart. And I'm sure Spider will play a part in that. He's like, oh, I have this connection with my son now, but I think the biggest thing will be he's going to learn to appreciate the Na'vi.
Yeah, and I really hope, and I don't think that will, like, I don't think him being isolated, him being stranded, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think the humans are just going to take him right back.
Right.
And we'll see what happens there. Hopefully he doesn't just, like, switch on a dime. Like, I hope this is something where they really, like, spend some time
I hope
with
they
his
build.
character.
Yeah, I hope they like build very clear steps to this, and not just, okay, yeah, he's a good guy now.
Right. I want him to, like, be in an unfamiliar environment, which is why I would like for him to just be stranded on Pandora. Maybe
Right.
he goes to another tribe, and he's, like, trying to integrate himself with them so he can convince them to fight against Jake's tribe.
Oh, and
Maybe
so it's like a kind of like a war. Like he like starts a civil war between the Na'vi, basically.
yes.
I can
And
see
so-
them doing that.
Yeah, and maybe because at that point he's so invested in the world itself, he doesn't really care so much about all of the human stuff. He maybe even doesn't even see himself as a human anymore, and
Right.
so now he's just focused on Pandora conflict itself.
Right.
And from there, that's when his character changes, has a change of heart, whatever you want to do at that point. But
Right.
I hope it's something similar. I hope it's not just very like on the nose, which is how I think a lot of things have been so far. But I guess we'll see. Only time will tell, and it's probably going to be a lot of time.
It hopefully not too much. I know that they are planning on releasing them in 2-year increments. So
Yeah.
like the next one's supposed to come out in 2024, and then 2026, and then the final one will be in 2028. So I hope they're able to do that, because that would be fantastic if they're able to crank the next one out next year. That'd be awesome.
I hope so too, but
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I'm very cautious when it comes to that, because they did the same thing after the first movie. Like they said the same exact thing. It was like, okay, here's the timeline of when everything comes out. So I don't know. There was also a lot of rumors with this movie that there was like 9 hours of deleted footage. Which
I heard about that for the third one. I've heard that whenever James Cameron turned in his like director's cut or whatever of the movie, it was 9 hours long. I've heard that.
Well, I heard also that was for the second movie too, and I tried to
Really?
look it up, but there really wasn't anything saying that. So I think there's like a little bit of misinformation that goes around with these movies, and I don't know why, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Well, only time will tell. I'm really not going to take their word for anything at this point. Of like,
And now
when
I'm
things are
confused
coming
because
out.
I just looked up, is Avatar 3 9 hours long? And it says, according to Snyder, Avatar 3's first cut is 9 hours long. Snyder? I thought this was a James Cameron movie.
Who's Snyder?
Jack Snyder, I'm assuming?
Jack Snyder.
I thought this was a James Cameron movie. Is he part of Avatar as well?
I am not sure.
But this does say, according to Snyder, Avatar 3's first cut is 9 hours long.
Wow. Which
So
had a
that
running
is-
time of 9.
That is crazy. Gonna actually have to go like devote a day to go seeing that one.
I mean, obviously, they're gonna cut so much out of it, but I would watch it. No, I'd do it. I'd watch a 9-hour movie.
I totally
Once.
would. I'm like, oh, that seems like a long time. I totally would go do that.
I would do it. I would, yeah.
I would need like snack breaks and stuff, but I would do it.
Yeah, they have to have some intermissions, like 5.
Yeah, they need to have like an ad break or something in there.
Yeah.
Like the
definitely.
part where Jake starts plugging Coca-Cola or something, you know?
They start doing like obvious product placement in the movie.
Yeah, they're like in the middle of the forest, and just for some reason there's a giant Pepsi sign.
Start having a Ford F-150 drive through the jungle.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, maybe the colonel drives a F-150 through the forest, and it's like, yeah, I'm glad I'm driving something built like a Ford.
If you thought off-road wasn't enough, try off-planet.
That would be such a good ad.
Ford F-150
I
going
think
through
that would
freaking
be
Pandora.
such a good ad.
They just start airdropping them from the sky. The sky people drop their trucks.
Yeah. It's it's this sequence. It's like a James Bond film. Instead of dropping like vehicles out of a plane, they're dropping like F-150s, and that'd be funny.
Built for power, built for the way of the water.
Well, the next one's not going to be way of the water. It'll be something else. I heard that because whenever they there's like Avatar, and then there's Avatar: The Last Airbender. They claim this one, they were Avatar: Way of the Water. So if they ever go try to remake an Avatar: The Last Airbender movie, and the first book is water, they're like they're claiming that stuff. So I'm sure the next one's gonna be like Earth or something. Avatar: Way of the Earth.
Oh my god, dude.
Avatar.
Can you imagine?
Avatar: Way of the Last Airbender.
Which speaking of Avatar, the series, there supposedly there's another one in the works.
Okay.
With the next Avatar.
So I am real skeptical when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender news, because supposedly there's been a live action Avatar in the works, and that has been going on for like years now. Like they're like, there's a whole channel devoted to like, there's an Avatar live action series that's being produced by Netflix. Here's all the updates for it, and the whole channel is basically like, Netflix has confirmed that they're making the new Netflix show, and it's going to be live action, and the original creators are going to have say and stuff like that. They're going to be involved. And then this dude, like, same week, releases an episode where he's like, the creators just got kicked off of it, and then the next episode's the creators are back on, but Netflix doesn't know if they want to pursue the project anymore. Like, this has been going on for so long that anytime someone's like, there's new Avatar stuff coming, I'm like, is there though?
Yeah. I hope so. It was something about they're making another series about the Earth Avatar after Korra.
Right. I know there is a fan-made one called Legend of Genji, and I know people really like it.
Oh, really?
So I don't know, because there's a YouTube channel for the Legend of Genji, and it's basically it's like a comic book that they have right now, and I don't know if they voiced the characters, but it's not animated. It's got it's like the webcomic kind of format,
Yeah.
And so it's very possible that because that one is so liked, that when they go and produce this next show, they might just end up animating the Legend of Genji.
I would not.
Which I think would be cool. I'd be down for that, because I haven't looked into Legend of Genji a whole lot, but I've seen little bits of it, and it seems very, very well put together.
I just want some more Avatar.
I agree. I 100%.
I want more of both Avatar. Give me both Avatars.
Yeah, both Avatar. Yeah. When are we doing a crossover episode?
Yeah, right. They should.
It reminds me of Hop when he's saying he directed a film about blue people on a planet called Pandora, and she's like, "Isn't that Avatar?" And
wait,
he's
who?
like, and the movie Hop.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that.
Bunny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time somebody mentions, like, more Avatar, I always think of that scene for some reason.
I need to watch that scene. But yeah, what do you have any final thoughts about the movie? Any final messages about your opinions?
I did, but then we started talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, so now I've lost my incoherent thought.
Oh yeah, you don't need to worry about it, dude. It's in the title. Incoherent Thoughts.
I had something I was gonna talk about, but I can't think of what I was gonna say now. I hate when that happens.
This podcast is meant for tangents.
That's true. We can, if anything, next episode I'll be like, oh, by the way, I remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think I have anything else that I wanted to mention.
Yeah. Avatar 2. Good movie. Looks amazing. Definitely worth a watch.
I remember what I was gonna say now. Sorry, right after you just did your closing.
No, go for it.
Your conclusion. The thing I was gonna say is, it took them 13 years to make this movie, and it was phenomenal. And now they're like, oh, we're gonna release the next couple in increments of 2. Mm-hmm. Are they gonna be able to make a movie as good? A movie that took 13 years to make is now taking them 2 years to make. Are they going to be able to produce at the same level? And I want to say yes, because this one totally blew away expectations. I'll be honest, I went into this movie expecting it not to be good, because
Really?
that was just how I go into expecting movies after watching some of the stuff that's been released, you know? I just expect not to like it, and I was pleasantly surprised. And so I'm really curious if they will be able to still make a good movie when they release this third one, you know? Like, I hope they're not rushing it.
Well, yeah, I think they will, because, you know, it took 13 years, but I don't think they were necessarily working on the movie, actually doing digital effects for 13 years.
Right. And
I
the
heard
fact that it's... Sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I heard that James Cameron took so long because he was waiting for the right technology to do it with the water.
I've heard that, yeah.
I'm not sure, but I don't think that they were necessarily actually doing visual effects for 13 years, and that's why it took so long. So, yeah, I think with 2-year increments, I think technology, it you know, it advances every year.
Yeah, after seeing this one, I will definitely say I'm a bit more, how do I put it? Like, I'm not as worried about them producing bad ones from here on out, because I know, like, knowing how James Cameron is now, you know, he took 13 years to make this movie to make sure it was what he was envisioning. And so if he thinks it can happen in 2 years, then I trust that, because I feel like if he didn't think it could happen in 2 years, he would not be opposed to making it take longer, you know?
Yeah. Well,
like, I feel like if he says it's going to happen in 2 years, then I think that's a good, like, I think he knows he can do that, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad you have some trust in him. I don't know if I have the same trust, to be honest. We'll see, though. Maybe he might prove me wrong.
I'm a trusting person. I like believing that he's got my back.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully he does.
I used to think the same thing about, like, Kevin Feige. You know, I was like, oh, this Marvel movie's coming out. I know it's gonna be good. And then I went and watched Doctor Strange, Thor: Love and Thunder. I watched the She-Hulk TV show, and I was like, wow. Marvel is in a really bad spot right now. You know, so I don't have that same trust anymore in Feige.
Yeah, I think honestly we should you know, in an episode, a future episode, maybe even the next one, we should.
I was about to say we could do it next episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I think the MCU would be a good one to talk about.
Yeah, I think Incoherent Thoughts about the MCU. Next episode, I think that'd be a good one, because I think that has a lot to do with what we were talking about today, and that isn't such a bad idea. So I think we should definitely.
I agree.
Put a bookmark.
So tune in next time for Incoherent Thoughts about Marvel.
Yes.
Do like the Dragon Ball thing, be like, find out next time on
Find out next time what Aiden and Billy think about MCU and Kevin Feige.
I like that.
We need some outro music.
Yeah, for real. It's some, like, you know, crazy, like, oh, you know, or the hero's gonna make it kind of outro music, right?
Maybe I'll do like a voiceover. I'll do a voiceover, and if we're good on ending it now, I'll, like, slowly, we'll fade in the music and do the voiceover now. I
like that idea, actually. I like the voiceover idea.
Okay, and here it goes. And this is the voiceover. Tune in next time to hear what our incoherent heroes have to say about the MCU. Will they agree with each other? Or will they disagree and fight about it to the death? Only one thing's for certain. It will be incoherent. Just like this outro and my life. What am I doing? Who am I? Find out next time on the Incoherent Podcast with Billy and Aiden.